So on social media, you're seeing a lot of videos of very, very demoralized Ukrainian soldiers. Usually, they are addressing the camera as a group, and one of their members is acting as a representative and articulating the problems that they are having. And usually, the problems involve lack of leadership, lack of logistic support, lack of weapons, lack of ammunition. I mean, they're complaining, they're bitching and moaning quite a bit. And the videos that we are seeing, we're seeing more of them. And of course, for every video that you see online, you can assume that there are three or four that you haven't seen. And for every one of those videos that you do see that has been recorded and uploaded somewhere, there's probably 20 other units that feel basically the same thing. You see, few of these soldiers are complaining because they know for a fact that if they upload a video complaining, they will be arrested. And there is video of one unit complaining and then later getting arrested. Okay, I mean, Jesus, I'm laughing, but it's tragic, right? So there is a lot of, basically the Ukrainian army is demoralized. Now, what's interesting is that you start to look at the men who are complaining, and they are older. And that's something that as you get older, you'll realize that as you get older, you feel less and less afraid to complain. When you're young, I've noticed, when you're in your 20s, you want to complain, but if nobody else is complaining, you're like, okay, I'll just put up with this, okay? You get into your 30s and your 40s, and you're like, fuck that, man. I'm not going to put up with this shit. Maybe the other assholes are going to put up with it, but not me. And you start bitching and moaning, and then all of a sudden, everybody's bitching and moaning. And so I suspect that is part of the reason, because these soldiers are older, because they're territorial defense forces. Hold that thought. Now, you're not seeing this kind of complaint from the Russians. And to tell you the truth, I'd be shockingly surprised if you did, for a very simple reason. You see, the Russian armed forces, the Russian army is 5 times larger than the Ukrainian army. And so what is happening and what you are seeing units leaving Ukraine and going back to Russia. Yeah, you see those videos all the time, actually. If you know which Telegram accounts to look at, you see them, and they're being cheered by the Russian civilians back home in Russia, right? Because these soldiers, they're being rotated out for rest and relaxation and rearming. So they're being pulled out, and what's happening? They're being replaced by fresh troops. And that's the core issue here. It's not weapons. It's not logistic support. No. It's that the Russians have the depth of their armed force to replace their frontline fighters. So they take out a frontline fighter and replace him with fresh ones, freshly armed, rested up, all good and happy, and they go and fight. And that's why every day, the Russians are slowly eating away at the Donbass. Every day. You go at Military Summary. A lot of you guys have been subscribed to that channel. I'm really glad. It's a great channel, and Dima is doing a great job of it. But every day, and you see in Dima's daily reports, the Russians are just eating a little bit more, right? Are the Ukrainians, pushing back, taking some territory of their own? No, they're not. And everybody talked about that Kherson offensive, right? And what happened there? And they're not talking about it anymore. Why? Because 200 men died there for nothing. It was a complete fiasco. And here's the worst part. The thing that really, when I realized this, it just drove me up the wall. Because you see, the Kherson offensive, the idea was that the Ukrainian armed forces would attack at Kherson and push forward because, the main thrust of the Russians is way over on the east, right? Right around Lysychansk and all that area, right? But over at Kherson, just northwest of Crimea, it seemed kind of like an open field almost. There are soldiers there, but no big deal. So let's do an offensive there. Okay, fine. They go and do their big offensive. They get slaughtered. 200 men died for nothing. And that's the issue. They really did die for nothing because, see, even if that counteroffensive had been successful and they had captured some territory, what then? Operationally, there was nothing else that was going to come and support that offensive to either break the Russian line or do something with it. What would have happened is that this offensive would have gone in, recaptured some territory that was being occupied by the Russians, and then what? Nothing. And those men would have been ultimately slaughtered by the Russians again. I mean, even if they had won, in the end they would have lost, and they all would have died for nothing. And that's the thing, that once you realize it, you're saying, so the offensive was purely for PR purposes. It was purely to say, yeah, we're going to do an offensive, and these 200 men died so that the people in Kiev could have a headline for a couple of days. That's what happened. And the other thing that's going on, of course, is that, see, like I mentioned, the territorial defense forces, they're the men on the front lines. Because they keep saying, here's the weird thing. All of the commentary that's coming out of the West, especially the Brosint, the open source intelligence community, they keep saying that the Russians, they're losing their officers, they have logistical problems, this problem, that problem, all these problems. And then you start to realize they're projecting onto the Russians what's happening to the Ukrainians. Because these Brosint guys, they're not stupid. Delusional perhaps, but they're not stupid. They see and can read a map. They understand what's going on. And so what's happening is that they can't accept it, they won't accept it, or for whatever reasons of their own, the payments of their own they might be getting perhaps, they flip it around and see the Ukrainian problem and say, no, it's not the Ukrainian problems, it's the Russians' problem. The Ukrainian army is collapsing. The reason they are using territorial defense force men is because they have run out of frontline troops. And right now, see, the Zelensky regime and the West, they're talking about an August offensive, that in August everything will be made better, that they are building in the west of Ukraine, they are building an army. Zelensky talked about a 1 million man army, but of course it's not a 1 million man army, but they're building an army out in the west of Ukraine. And this army, by August, it'll be ready for the counteroffensive, and it'll come over here and save the day and smash the Russians and retake all the occupied territories from the Russians. That's the story, the narrative that's being pushed right now. That in August, this great Ukrainian army that's being built in the West is going to come in and save the day. Like in Helm's Deep, like in Lord of the Rings. Remember, the orcs were winning. The orcs were winning, and then Gandalf came in on his big white horse on Shadowfax and came in with this huge army and wiped out the orcs. And the good guys won. That's the daydream that's being peddled. That come August, this army from the West is going to march to the east of Ukraine and wipe out the Russians. Well, it's a lie. There is no such army in the West. They're making it up out of whole cloth. I mean, if I'm wrong and there is such an army, okay, let's see some pictures of it. Let's see pictures of them training. Let's see some pictures of them learning to operate the new weaponry. Let's see that, okay? Oh, no, it's not in Western Ukraine. It's actually in like Poland and Germany that they're being trained. Really? Okay, let's see pictures from there, please. Let's see, a few companies training or whatever. I mean, don't show me like a squad or even a platoon. No, not even a company. Show me 500 guys training. I mean, they do have to march in the morning, right? They do have to go for a jog in the morning, like all training soldiers do, as it were, right? So show me a few hundreds of these guys, jogging along in the morning routine, getting ready for the big August offensive. Please show me. That old saying, I'm from Missouri, you have to show me. Yeah, I'm from Missouri. Show me. There is no such army. There is no such army. They're making it up. They're saying that all these Western weapons that are coming in, the howitzers, the M777, I think, that they keep going on and on about. Okay, and some other, some French self-propelled gun and all the rest of it. I mean, they keep talking about all this gear that's coming, that's flowing in. But see, they also say that all this gear is not going to the West for this army that they are building in the West. No, it's going straight to the front, piecemeal. And the thing is also they keep complaining about the fact that the Russians keep blowing that shit up on the way, or it gets there and the people operating it aren't trained on it, so they don't know really how to operate it effectively. So it's like a big, you know, disaster. Okay, and sometimes they do manage to use it, and then it gets blown up and used up, and that's that. And the game changer gets changed for something else, and now they're talking about some drones. I think drones. I think are the new game changer. I mean, we've gone through like so many game changers, man. I don't even know what sport we're playing in anymore, man. They keep changing the game. What is it now, huh? There is no army in the West. They are not building any army in the West that's going to come and save the day. In eastern Ukraine, they are down to territorial defense forces because the top tier guys, they've been chewed up. Why do you have territorial defense forces on the front lines? Those guys are supposed to be in the rear, taking care of army depots, maintaining social order, making sure that the logistics supply flows properly. Because in an army, you have frontline fighters and you have a lot of support personnel. You have mechanics, you have procurement people, you have all kinds of people who have to do all kinds of crap in an army, And so you have the frontline people who are supported. But if you have the rear guard people up on the front, what does that indicate? It means that you've lost your frontline troops. It means that you're losing this war. These videos of complaining soldiers, it's not that we're going to see more and more of them. It's that more and more of them are going to start to realize, if we complain, we're going to get arrested and we're going to get into a heap of trouble. So let's just surrender. I think that we are very, very close to a collapse in the Eastern Front. I don't know how close, but I think it's exceedingly close. So pay attention.